All right, in this module, I want to talk about some of the wording around coding, programming, and software engineering. Now, a lot of the time, I really focus on software engineering as being separate from programming and writing code, but I'm actually going to start off by trying to distinguish a little bit about writing code and programming. And we're going to start with this comparison because I think it's a little bit more simple, and then we'll talk about software engineering to follow. And personally, this might be a little bit pedantic, and I think that's okay because I think a lot of the time, when people are talking about coding, programming, and software engineering, they're really trying to encompass all of the things that go into this. So I don't mean to try and explain this to try and say that people are wrong when they use them interchangeably, because I do think a lot of the time I understand what they're trying to say and their meaning is definitely conveyed. So I don't think it's actually a huge issue. I just wanted to be able to explain it so that you can think about these terms a little bit more specifically. So in earlier modules, I talked about programming as being the idea that you're taking different problems that you're trying to solve and actually translating that information into algorithms that you'll then go code. And I just phrased it this way to give you an idea about what the difference is between coding and programming. And it's a small difference, but coding is actually the part where you're taking the logic that you're thinking through and actually applying that to the specific programming language you're using. So it's truly taking that algorithm and converting it into code. So in the earlier module, I gave you a verbal algorithm, and that was kind of going through like the programming part of this. But the actual coding part we didn't do because I didn't write any code for you. So if we had a programming language that we had picked out and we had our algorithm, coding instead of programming would actually be taking that algorithm and writing the code for it. So it's a very subtle difference, but programming is going to encompass things like coding. That's one of the things that we would be doing, but it also includes the problem solving part and thinking through the algorithm, whereas coding is actually taking those concepts and writing the code for your program. So small difference there, but what about software engineering? Why is that so different? What else goes into this? Well, I'm actually going to take this moment to say software development and software engineering. And again, both of these can be separated as well. But one part I'm just going to distinguish right away is that engineering on its own is a specific field that is a profession. It's going to have a regulating body, and what that's going to mean is that, for example, you need to be accredited, you need to go through specific tests so that the governing organization can actually approve you as a professional engineer. And at least in Canada and the United States, this is going to vary from state to state and province to province. And I can't speak for the other areas in the world, but generally engineering is a profession, and that's just going to carry some other implications with it just because of the governing body associated with working as an engineer. Now, a lot of the time, there are places that are hiring and they're saying we have software engineers. And even for myself, like I would say that I have been hired as a software engineer, I worked as a software engineer. I am actually not a professional engineer. And that might be a little bit confusing because I did go to school for computer engineering at an accredited university. I do have an iron ring on my hand. It's actually not actually iron, but it's one of the things that we get for going to engineering school in Canada, but I'm still not a professional engineer. But because of my training and my schooling, if I pursued writing the actual tests and getting the experience under another engineer, I would actually be able to apply to become a professional. And that is one big difference that I wanted to call out with the engineering side of things. And it's often just misconstrued because people will call all software developers software engineers. It is a difference. I just wanted to call it out. But the other thing I wanted to call out about software development compared to even programming and writing code is that software development is so much more than just the problem solving and just the writing code part. And this is a huge missed opportunity for people that are interested in becoming software developers as a profession because they are so hyper focused on the writing code part and even just the problem solving part. So to give you an example, if you're looking around on different social media sites or you're looking for different resources for programming, becoming a software developer, you will see a ton of focus on people being able to have boot camps or solving what are called leet code problems, where you have these different challenges and you have to go write code to solve them. And while all of these have some amount of value in them, I'm not trying to say that they don't. Something that's missed is that we're not working on our skills to actually work in teams as software developers. So this is where I put my engineering manager hat on, and I like to say that there are so many different challenges that we have to face in software engineering teams because it's not just a matter of sitting down in isolation, thinking about solving problems, writing the code. It's actually much bigger than that. You're going to be doing that with other people on your team. You're going to be doing that with people on your team and other teams of people. You're going to have to interface with different roles like project managers, product managers, engineering managers, maybe salespeople, maybe sales support, maybe tech support. What part of programming have we talked about so far that explains how to do these things effectively? What part of programming have we talked about so far that talks about doing a retrospective process or thinking about continuous improvement? There are many aspects to software development that extend beyond programming, and I want to urge you to think about these things, explore them, and treat them just as seriously as acquiring the technical skills, because so many people forget to look at this kind of stuff and they have a big surprise when they start working in a company and actually have to work with other software developers for the first time. So just to wrap this module up, we did look at how coding is different from programming, right? Because coding is actually going to be taking the algorithms and all of the work from your problem solving and codifying that into a programming language. And then I mentioned why engineering is completely separate from all of these things and how software development is basically a combination of the programming part, but so many more different facets in your career that are going to involve working with other people and applying these other concepts we talked about. All right, let's move on to the next module.